The Pittsburgh Steelers won the AFC North last season, and somehow that is not even the biggest reason people should be watching them now. This team is walking into a new season with a different voice, a different offensive plan, new weapons, and one rookie quarterback who has already made people look twice. Mike McCarthy is now in charge. Aaron Rodgers is back, working with the coach who knows him better than almost anyone in football. DK Metcalf suddenly has Michael Pittman Jr. beside him. And behind Rodgers sits Drew Aller, a third-round pick who was supposed to be a future project until his first preseason appearance changed the conversation. Against Green Bay, Aller completed 10 of 13 passes for 153 yards and 2 passing touchdowns, added another score with his legs, and finished with a 154.8 passer rating. That does not mean Pittsburgh has a quarterback controversy. It means this roster suddenly has another story nobody expected to matter this quickly. But the offense is only half of what makes Pittsburgh so interesting. On the other side, TJ Watt, Cameron Hayward, Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig, Keanu Benton, Derek Harmon, and Patrick Queen give new defensive coordinator Patrick Graham a front built to make every snap uncomfortable. Behind them, the Steelers added Jamel Dean to a secondary that already includes Jalen Ramsey and Joey Porter Jr. when healthy. That is a serious amount of talent on one defense, and Pittsburgh did not stop there. The front office handed major contracts to young players it clearly sees as part of the future, while still building a team designed to win right now with Rodgers. That is the strange part of this entire offseason. The Steelers are chasing the present without ignoring what comes after it. And that is why this season feels different. Pittsburgh did not react to last year by making one safe adjustment. The organization changed the head coach, changed both sides of the staff, changed the receiving room, added more help to the secondary, brought in 10 draft picks, and quietly placed a young quarterback behind one of the most experienced passers the league has ever seen. There are questions everywhere, but there is also a clear sense that Pittsburgh believes last year's division title was not the finish line. The real question is why a team that went 10-7 and finished first in the AFC North felt the need to change this much. To understand that, you have to go back to the part of last season that the final record did not show. Pittsburgh did not tear up its plan because last season was a failure. The reason was more uncomfortable. The Steelers finished first in the AFC North at 10 wins and 7 losses, but the record hid how uneven the year became. They could beat Baltimore when the division was on the line, yet there were other Sundays when the offense struggled to answer once the game changed. That gap between winning and controlling games became impossible to ignore by January. The clearest warning came against Houston. Pittsburgh entered the wild-card game at home, forced 3 turnovers, and still could not turn those chances into touchdowns. The Texans held the Steelers to 175 total yards, while Pittsburgh converted only 2 of 14 third downs. Houston led by 1 point after 3 quarters. Then the game broke open late. Aaron Rodgers finished a season that had delivered a division crown with an ending nobody inside the building wanted to repeat. Then came the moment that changed the franchise. On January 13th, Mike Tomlin stepped down after 19 seasons, 13 playoff appearances, 8 division titles, and no losing season. Pittsburgh did not treat that goodbye like a reason to panic. It treated it like a chance to reset its direction. 2 weeks later, Mike McCarthy became only the 4th Steelers head coach hired since 1969. The record had looked solid. The playoff ending said something much deeper now, and that is where the real offensive rebuild begins. The first thing Mike McCarthy has to solve is not whether Aaron Rodgers can still read a defense, it is whether Pittsburgh can make defenses defend more of the field. Last season, Rodgers threw for 3,322 yards, with 24 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, but too much of the passing game lived close to the line. That made every long drive feel like it needed almost perfect execution. This offense now has different answers. Michael Pittman Jr. brings size, reliable hands, and a history of handling heavy targets. DK Metcalf remains the player who can punish a defense when one mistake leaves him isolated. Jeremy Bernard gives the staff a younger receiver who can move inside or outside. At tight end, Pat Freiermuth and Darnell Washington can attack the middle in completely different ways. The goal is not to ask Rodgers to become somebody new. It is to give him cleaner, faster choices before pressure arrives on every drive. The backfield changed too. Kenneth Gainwell, Pittsburgh's team MVP last season, left for Tampa Bay this spring after producing 1,023 yards from scrimmage. Rico Dowdle arrived after consecutive 1,000-yard rushing seasons, joining Jaylen Warren and Caleb Johnson in a room with several styles. That matters because McCarthy does not need this offense living on one idea. But behind all those veterans sits the move that could shape Pittsburgh long after this season ends, and his story started long before draft night. Before Pittsburgh ever called Drew Aller, his path had taken a hard turn. At Penn State, he finished with 7,402 passing yards and 61 touchdowns. Then a broken left ankle ended his senior season in October. That injury changed the way teams had to study him. Pittsburgh studied. When the third round arrived, the Steelers believed the value was too strong to leave sitting on the board. What makes the pick interesting is the patience around it. Pittsburgh used pick 76 on Aller because his size and arm talent were worth developing. Now the rookie does not have to rescue an offense immediately. He can learn behind Aaron Rodgers and Mason Rudolph, while competing in a quarterback room that also includes Will Howard. That gives Pittsburgh something it has rarely had in recent years, a young passer with time to develop before every mistake becomes a weekly crisis. His second preseason game showed why that time matters. Against the New York Jets, Aller completed 11 of 23 passes for 110 yards, took 3 sacks, and did not throw a touchdown or an interception. It was not the explosive night that first grabbed attention. It was something more useful, a reminder that development will have rough moments. Pittsburgh does not need to decide his future in August. It needs to find out how quickly he learns. And the draft around him suggests the Steelers were building far more than a quarterback plan. Pittsburgh entered its own draft weekend with pressure everywhere. Then the board forced the Steelers to adjust. Philadelphia moved ahead and selected Mekhi Lemon, a receiver Pittsburgh had been linked to before the Steelers picked. Instead of chasing the moment, Omar Khan and Mike McCarthy turned toward the offensive line and selected Max Ihanakor from Arizona State. He had not allowed a sack during his senior season, giving Pittsburgh another young tackle to develop around its offense. The class kept spreading across needs. Jeremy Bernard arrived in the second round after Pittsburgh traded up. Then came Drew Aller, cornerback Dalen Everett, and guard Gennings Dunker in the third round. Caden Wetchen followed as a receiver and return specialist, then fullback Riley Nowakowski, defensive lineman Gabriel Rubio, safety Robert Spears-Jennings, and running back receiver Eli Heidenreich completed the group. Those players are rookies in 2026, which matters when judging what their roles should be now. The point is not that 10 draft picks will instantly become starters. That would be unrealistic. The real value is that Pittsburgh attacked several different timelines at once. Ihanakor and Dunker can strengthen protection. Bernard can grow into the passing game. Wetjen has a path through special teams. Everett, Rubio, and Spears-Jennings add young defensive options. Heidenreich gives the offense another flexible piece. The class was built for development, competition, and depth. But the clearest proof of Pittsburgh's long plan came after the draft, when the front office started writing enormous checks. Contracts reveal what a front office fears losing, and Pittsburgh has been clear. Nick Herbig received a 4-year extension worth $100 million, with $42 million guaranteed, after a career-high 7.5 sacks last season. The move keeps a 24-year-old pass rusher in the building, while TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith lead the edge group. That is planning beyond one season. A day later, Pittsburgh secured Darnell Washington with a 4-year extension worth $42 million, including $21 million guaranteed. Washington had just set career highs with 31 catches and 364 receiving yards. Then August brought another major decision. Keanu Benton agreed to a 4-year extension worth $72 million. Benton started every regular season game last year and finished with career highs of 51 tackles and 5.5 sacks. Those deals connect the roster more than any press conference could. Herbig gives Pittsburgh an edge presence for the future. Washington gives Mike McCarthy a rare two-way piece. Benton gives the defensive line a young anchor beside Cameron Hayward and Derek Harmon. All three came from Pittsburgh's own draft system, which makes the message stronger. The Steelers are rewarding players they developed before those players reach the open market. One member of that 2023 class remains without that long-term answer, Joey Porter Jr., and his situation leads directly into the biggest question on this defense. The front of Pittsburgh's defense gives Patrick Graham options most coordinators would love. Cameron Hayward can control the middle, while Keanu Benton and Derek Harmon give the line younger power beside him. On the edge, TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, and Nick Herbig can force offenses to protect before the ball is snapped. Behind them, Patrick Queen and Peyton Wilson bring speed that can clean up what gets pushed inside. The uncertainty lives farther back. Joey Porter Jr., Jalen Ramsey, and Dante Kent opened camp on the physically unable to perform list, while Pittsburgh had already added Jamel Dean, Jaquan Brisker, and brought back Asante Samuel Jr. Dean arrived on a 3-year deal worth $36.75 million. Brisker came on a 1-year contract and Samuel returned on another 1-year agreement. Those moves were not random. They gave Graham more choices while several defensive backs worked through health questions. There is younger depth trying to earn trust. Dalen Everett and Robert Spears Jennings entered as rookies, and every preseason rep matters because the secondary may need them earlier than planned. Pittsburgh does not require every defensive back to become a star. It needs enough healthy coverage behind a pass rush that should create hurried throws. If that balance holds, this unit can become the strongest part of the roster. If it does not, the AFC North has enough quarterback talent to expose it quickly, and every rival spent the offseason preparing for exactly that fight. Pittsburgh's biggest problem is that the rest of the AFC North refused to stand still. Baltimore replaced John Harbaugh with Jesse Minter, then added Trey Hendrickson on a 4-year deal and brought Calais Campbell back for the season. With Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, Kyle Hamilton, and Marlon Humphrey there, the Ravens are not rebuilding from nothing. They are trying to turn 8 wins into a response. Cincinnati answered in a different way. Joe Burrow still drives the offense, but the defense around him was changed. The Bengals traded for Dexter Lawrence II, then added Jonathan Allen, Boye Mafe, and Brian Cook. Cleveland made the boldest move, sending Myles Garrett to the Los Angeles Rams for Jared Verse and 3 future draft picks. That trade removed a franchise legend, but it also gave the Browns a young edge defender and draft value for the future. So Pittsburgh's path is simple to describe and difficult to execute. Aaron Rodgers has to make the passing game dangerous enough that opponents cannot squeeze the field. Mike McCarthy has to turn all these new pieces into one offense before September exposes the weak spots. Patrick Graham needs his secondary healthy enough to let the front attack. And somewhere behind the immediate race, Drew Aller keeps developing without carrying the season on his shoulders. Pittsburgh won this division last year. Now every rival looks different. That makes the next question unavoidable. Was that title the end of one era or the beginning of something bigger?